Welcome to Public Comment. I'm John Dunbar, former mayor of Yountville.
And I'm Alfredo Pedroza, still a farmer.
Welcome to Season 3, where we're going to talk about politics, people, and whatever else is still on our minds. It's hard to even start a day without worrying about what's happened now.
You can boycott, and that's freedom, but there's also freedom to participate.
We also need our elected leaders to stand up for the truth and what's right.
The only way this gets turned around is by people, right? By saying, no, we don't stand for that. John, I'm going to be honest, I'm surprised we've made it this far.
I'm not surprised.
Well, you still go out to things, and you're out there being a community man, and people are whispering in your ear that they're excited about this. At first, I thought it was just you're trying to encourage me to stay engaged. But as I sprinkle myself to some of the events I enjoy and actually want to be there, not because I'm in office, because I care, right? I do hear a little bit, John. So I want to say, I think you were right. People do want us to continue.
Well, as we're recording this and launching our third season, it's also crab season and crab feeds. And so there are people talking about the podcast, which I really appreciate. And some are asking us, what's coming next? A couple of the quotes that have really stuck with me. One is from somebody who said, you guys are talking about the Napa Valley that I recognize. And I took that as a serious compliment. And also that we are sharing perspectives that are a little bit unique based on our elected service.
Well, look, we did that in season 1, season 2. I think for season 3, I'm looking forward to continuing that perspective, right? I know we're going to have some restaurant tours. They maybe have some Michelin stars, and to hear what it takes to do that, right? To hear from business owners that are running businesses. Maybe the hotel will be done by the time we're done because you can still hear it. But we're going to keep adding diversity of opinions and perspectives. So I'm excited about that. And you actually have people telling you they want to be guests. Like, I think we have a waiting list, John.
They're asking. And I appreciate that too, because from the very beginning, we've wanted to make sure that we're talking about things that you and I feel strongly about, local issues, but also we want to introduce people that are in this community that not everybody really knows a lot about. And I've been so happy with how open and, honest, personal that many of our guests have been.
I agree. And look, I'm a data guy, and we track the metrics of how we're going, and to be able to see the data numbers of how we're trending upward, for even those people that didn't believe in us, they probably just were tuning in because they hate us, maybe. The facts are...
They just have a different opinion.
Okay, fine. You're being politically correct, John. The fact that we have people tuning in and that viewership is growing, that's a fact, John. I think that's impressive. And it shows that people do want to tune in. And I shouldn't have used the word hate, John. I think that was a little too strong, because part of what I think would be great to open with is some of the stuff going on national, right? It's hard. It's hard to watch TV. It's hard to explain to my kids, John, of what they're seeing on TV. And we have to find a way to get through that, right? And I think you and I were talking, and I look back at when President Obama was president, there was people that hated the man. And now you look at today and President Trump, and you have people that have that same feeling. And we got to be able to overcome that. I'm not saying neither man is perfect, but they're both trying to do something. We don't have to agree with it, John. But how did we get to a place where we have so much hate? Now, there are things happening in this moment that are causing real emotion, that are impacting people's lives, John, in a real way. But we can't default to the anger all the time. And this inability to acknowledge some good, I think is causing some of the problems, John. And you and I can relate. Look, I didn't agree with everything you did, every vote you made, but I knew you wanted something. And I know that's hard to project at the national level, John, because it's so loaded with so much stuff. But it's either I love you or I hate you. I don't think that's going to bode well for America.
No, and I acknowledge the first 2 seasons, we really stayed hyper-local. We talked about local issues and local people, and I want to keep doing that for the most part. But, we just can't ignore the crisis that this country is in right now, because it affects literally everybody in our community too, in different ways. But, it's hard to even start a day without worrying about what's happened now. And so how do you open up your small shop, or how do you take your kids to school when you've got those kind of things lingering and really worrying you.
And not that I want to harp on the media, because we already talked about the monetization. And if you remember, I think it was Adam Housley talked about the media, Barry Martin did in season 1 or 2. And I just hope that as people are tuning in, that you think critically, that you take time to understand what's going on. Have your own opinion, but take time to understand what is happening, right? Because we're going to be reading about this, John. This moment that we're going through as a country and as a nation, we're going to be reading about it.
When I try to find out what I like to believe is a balanced perspective on what's happening, which is almost impossible to find right now, I'll go through at least 3 different network channels, and it's amazing how different what the facts as they believe them to be are being presented. It used to be about, government funding and, cutting what was considered, fraud, abuse, and waste and all those things. And now it's people are losing their lives over the kind of chaos and violence that's happening. Now we're on multiple levels. We have international issues that are, look, in the wine industry, in construction, in every business sector, people are being impacted by tariffs and the inability for the U.S. to stay in the same kind of trade space as they have been. Those are having real consequences locally.
Well, and bringing it back locally, right, is, what's always impressed me about, the U.S. and just even local communities like Napa, John, is the optimism. Like, we're very optimistic people. Like, we've done things like flood control, right, that no one thought we could do, right? You have someone dropping hundreds of millions of dollars right across from us, John, to build a massive project, right, employing hundreds of people. Like, there's still hope, but it doesn't go to the top of people's news feed, right? And somehow we got to get back to that. It's not that we're not paying attention to the hurt and harm happening. There is. But it's like, how do we get back to creating goodness? And I do think, John, our podcast, not to get, rosy glasses on, but I think we are trying to create an avenue, a lane of having conversations and being open and honest around them and trying to make sure people are still thinking critically.
Well, and remember, very early in season 1, we talked about people needing to do more than just complain or frankly, even just protest. We're seeing it at a very different scale right now because of what's happening in many different parts of the country. And it's still something that needs to be more than just posting on social media. We also need our elected leaders at all levels to have backbones, to stand up for the truth and what's right. I'm very frustrated when I hear people in Congress and people at the state level that refuse to acknowledge, to your point, maybe somebody of the other party is actually doing something positive, but if you acknowledge that, that means you're being weak and you're hurting the party that you belong to. It's like, can we stop that, please? I mean, we took, when we were in elected office, I know that we're nonpartisan. Local government is nonpartisan, whether people believe it or not. It is supposed to be nonpartisan. And so it's supposed to be based on what's the best thing for our constituents and our community.
Yeah. Well, I remember, and I give credit to one of my opponents when they ran, their slogan was putting locals first. It was brilliant, right? Because they were insinuating that I wasn't putting locals first, right? And it's like, make America great again, right? So we're saying America wasn't great before. And I think you're seeing a new level of marketing and branding and politics, John, that we've never seen before. And it's impacting the way people govern. You were in office and you were a legislator. You governed, you led, right? And right now, just in some of the work I do out in the Bay Area, I'm seeing less of that. I'm seeing more of, it's almost like you're running for high school class president, right? Well, someone still has to do the work. As elected, someone still has to do the work to bring money in, to go compromise, to go negotiate. And that takes risk. And I'm not seeing it right now. And as we talk to electeds in season 3, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to ask those softball questions. I'm going to go hard because people deserve that. They need to know how you're going to respond when you might have to piss off the unions or piss off the Chamber of Commerce. How are you going to do that?
Well, because you need to have relationships before that kind of altercation or challenge. And I don't see the building of relationships happening like it used to. And I know we have a couple guests that know this at the state level that we have coming up. We have some political candidates that are running for office at the highest level that we are going to be having on this season. And it's going to really be interesting to hear them talk about, okay, how do you get stuff done? Because it's all about the number of votes you can get. And usually it means you need to get somebody on your side that isn't always on your side.
Well, it's that too, but I also think about business owners, John. I think when we were going through, some of our first seasons, we had some folks that weren't ready to go in, right? Because they were concerned of, could there be fallout? Can they get canceled? That's concerning, right, as a business owner, right? And I think we got to find a way where you can boycott, you can do this, and that's freedom, right? You have that freedom. But there's also freedom to participate, freedom to engage, freedom to go to a council meeting and not just be excited to get your 3 minutes because you get to be shown on the TV and hope you get quoted in the paper. That's not advocacy, right? And I just hope that we go back to saying, okay, if you want to get involved, you can get involved and you can make it better, right? But it's not always the glitz and glamour. It's the behind the scenes work. It's the grunt work. It's, to your point, building a relationship so you can say no and still go have a drink afterwards.
Right. And that's what happened when I was on the council in Yountville. And even when I was with the League of California Cities, I was on a board of 54 elected officials. Try to get everybody to agree on something. It's impossible. And you did have to have that personal interaction in order to hear the other person's side. Sometimes it made me smarter about my position because we were willing to hear a broader perspective. That's not happening for the most part right now. And, I'm proud of our community standing up for what I also agree is truth and justice. Not everybody sees it the same way, but we just can't stop there. And we need to keep pushing our electeds. Like, there are midterms coming up this year, and then there's another big election in 2 more years after that, where if you're really that dissatisfied, then you need to find other people that are going to do it differently, even at the local level.
Well, and I'll tell you, because, we've been out of office for a while now, and it was a decision we made.
We should toast to that.
Cheers. We should drink too. We chose to be in office, right? But now that you kind of get to reflect back, you missed a lot. And I'm not complaining, right, that we missed this. I was listening to we're in football season, and one of the head coaches was quoted that he only would see his kid 30 minutes a week, right? And people harped on him. Well, he made that choice, right? Just like we made a choice to run for office, and you miss birthdays and, this and that, maybe forget an anniversary here or there. I'm not speaking from personal experience. But you justified that because you were all in. And I want to make sure that as electeds, those that are in office now or those that are thinking about it, go all in. Don't go and camp out. And I don't know if we've talked about term limits before, John, but I would fully support term limits because you got to have people say, we're in. It's almost like a military service. Go in, do it, and get out. But do it with a purpose of wanting to do something. And right now, we're just seeing people that are wanting to coast. And it's impacting public policy, John.
And I agree with that. And I used to have a different opinion about, the folks that don't believe in term limits. Is like, well, then vote for somebody else. And that's true. But there are times when, especially as we were ending our careers in elected office, people weren't even stepping up to run because it was so difficult to be in elected office. The vitriol was growing and growing, and it was really negative. And people are like, I'm not going to put myself or my family through that abuse, frankly. We saw it locally. This community was not immune from that. And so there are some really good, smart people. I know I've tried to talk them into running in various ways.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I'm not going to do that. So we need to keep making the communication civil, respectful, so that we do get the best leadership that we can get. This is not just in the political arena. It's the same thing with boards for nonprofits and doing the right thing for the mission of the nonprofit in other places like that.
Well, not that I want to use, these bubbly words, but like compassion, right? Like I was hearing about a coffee shop that's expanding, doing a second store. And when I heard about their story, they talked about how they're putting all their marbles in, right? And it's real, right? And I think that's what I mean about highlighting people like that, John, is through our podcast of hopefully as people listen, you learn a little bit more about the struggles that other people have. And at the same time, I want to hear from those that believe the world's going to end tomorrow and climate change is real. I'm not saying it's not, but that we need to do X by 2030, and it's the thing that they wake up every day for. Then help us understand that perspective in a way that you bring people with you. Not you're a climate denier, you're done. Like it can't. This I guess that's what I'm struggling with. And maybe as we go through the season, John, we kind of try to challenge people on that notion a little bit.
I agree. I like that idea. I think, there is an urgency to a lot, and climate, sustainability is one of those things.
Thank God someone started that committee, John.
Yeah. Gee, who was that? Who got together with Mayor Chris Canning way back in the day?
Stop patting yourself on the back.
We got a toast to Mayor Canning.
No, I'm not.
But that's also about having vision and being willing. Again, I know I've mentioned it a couple times in previous episodes. Making decisions that maybe aren't exactly what you individually want, but it's for the best of the community. And so, recently I was listening to a county supervisor meeting when somebody in a advocacy group praised the fact that they got everybody elected because now they have people following their agenda. It's like, is that really for the best of the community or just the best of your particular perspective?
That goes back to, I would challenge that person. That's a divisive statement in that moment, right? How is that trying to bring people together? How is that trying to create harmony? Did the business community do that to you, John? Was the Chamber of Commerce going up? Was the ag community saying, we got all you? No. So why does the other side in this moment feel compelled to do that? And I guess we got to challenge each other that. And sometimes I feel bad for people that's what they feel. There has to be more in life than going up to a boardroom saying, I got you guys elected.
Yeah, I know it was frustrating to hear. And I know.
And it's disrespectful to the current elected officials that work their butts off. Maybe we like them or not, but they work their butts off to get elected.
Yeah. I hope that people are respecting and appreciating the staffs that go into, they're professionals, whether it's county, the cities, the town. And we as electeds, I know I did, rely heavily on their expertise. When you have people that have a personal agenda, just blast and say, you have incompetent staff because they don't agree with what this person's saying.
Yeah.
And the staffs in our jurisdictions are non-biased and they are professionals. Now, are some better than others? Of course, that's true about everything, right? But I still have confidence in the analysis that people that are paid professionals that work for our government present to our electeds to make informed and fair decisions. We used to think that we were best here at the local level while we watched the chaos of either Sacramento or Washington. And I'm not as convinced that there's a purity to our intentions, even at the local level.
Like you mentioned staff, I disagreed with staff plenty of times. And I was glad that
that's okay too.
Yeah, you agree. And some left, which is okay. But that's okay, to your point. It doesn't mean that you can't greet each other, at the street, in the grocery store, in the coffee shop. That's just life, right? But they had an opinion, and I heard it. As a legislator, you take it in and you render a decision, right? So that's life, right? But what I don't appreciate and didn't appreciate kind of what you're saying is where they were labeled as they're just rubber stamping things, and it's disrespectful to their professional career and experience, right? So, look, we kind of went down this path, right, where it was just a great conversation. But in terms of season 3, I'm looking forward, John, to some of the guests that we already have in the queue, and it's building off what we've built, right? And you're going to get electeds that have their opinion, former electeds that are open and willing to speak their mind, and to the business owners that are willing to tell their story, right? Because it's easy to not do it.
You know, one of the things that I found interesting from a couple different people, totally different sectors, businesses, but a similar concern is they would love to come on and have a very candid, kind of in-depth conversation with us, but they're worried about putting it on the record, on tape, to use the old term, and have it there so that somebody could maybe use it against them in the future. If it's a business owner, if it's somebody making taking a position for or against a political issue, and like you said, some are afraid they're going to lose customers over that, and that they're going to lose business, and they're the ones. Look, they've in many cases invested their whole livelihoods into their business, and you'd hate for it to be impacted.
But
like that.
I do think it's changing, right? And I'm not big on social media, but I was talking to Brenda, and she made an observation, that she's seeing more people that have businesses saying, I normally wouldn't say something, but I'm saying something now. And I think it's striking a chord, right? Where people are saying enough. Whatever your enough is, whatever that bucket where it's spilling over now, I'm proud that people are doing that, because that is going to lead to a better tomorrow. And we're hurting now. But the only way this gets turned around is by people, right? By saying, no, we don't stand for that. So I am seeing the flashes of it. So I'm excited about that. I am going to talk about sports fields, John, in 2020, in our 2026, this new season.
And 27.
Because it's still a damn issue, right? We made progress. There's a new little sports complex, I think, that the Gasser Foundation gracefully did. That's a drop in the bucket. We need more.
Well, to that point, I know that there are folks that are working in a couple very different areas, unrelated, to add recreational and youth sports opportunities in this valley. We've always known that finding space for that kind of stuff is difficult, but it's related to that we need to keep supporting our business community. I mean, the wine industry has been in a very challenging, some say cycle, some say downturn, whatever you want to call it. But the fact is, the wine industry and hospitality in general, tourism, supports everything we do here, including climate protection and environmental protection and sustainability. And so I hope that the friction and the animosity of us versus them is dissipated, because to your point, it's gotten so toxic that it's really harmful, and it means nothing gets done.
Well, again, we talked about there's a local hotel, right, going through some financial difficulties, and when it was written up that, there was foreclosure, people were celebrating that. That's not something we should celebrate, right? We should celebrate the wins. We should celebrate this massive project being undertaken. We should celebrate when we do the next general plan and there's more, potentially environmental protections. We should celebrate that if it's done with the goal of making it better. Now, if it's done with the goal of restricting growth, that's a problem. If it's done like increasing fees under the guise of building affordable housing, we don't celebrate that, because that was a growth play to stop housing being built, which is a net loss because you're not going to get property taxes. We don't celebrate that, and we shouldn't.
I have a feeling we'll be talking more about that in a future episode.
Let's wrap this up, John.
Well, so like we've been saying, we can appreciate and frankly congratulate ourselves for, and Caleb, I know he hates it when we go to the...
He makes you look good, I know.
The best he can, but that we have stayed true to our original goal, and highlighting people and issues that are relevant here in the valley, doing it fairly, honestly, and hopefully even folks that don't consider us their closest friends and that we don't always agree, we can find some common ground and some some
Well,
civility.
and also, if some of the people that feel that we might be talking about them, if they want to come on the pod, come on in. I'm
Well,
happy to engage in that dialogue.
We have received a couple emails that I read that I tell you about of people saying, why don't you have this person or that person on? And I'm like, we're open to pretty much everybody.
Hey, look, if we're going to preach, we must do. So if one of our wonderful friends wants to come on and engage in a respectful dialogue, I'm all in.
Public comment Napa at gmail.com is the way to get in touch with
John's
us.
going to read them. Cheers.
Cheers.